He always looked at me like that. Part 4, what winning costs. He thought love had finally chosen him. Then the person he loved became his biggest competitor, and one cruel sentence changed everything. The Harlow Grant. If you're not in our program, that name means nothing to you. If you are, it means everything. £60,000. A year-long placement at the Policy Institute in Geneva, the kind of name that opens every door behind it for the rest of your career. One recipient per year, selected from a short list of 5, announced at the end of spring semester. It had my name on it. I knew it did. Not arrogance, evidence. 2 years of the highest marks in the program. The project grade. Professor Anand's recommendation, which she told me she was writing and which, coming from her, was the closest thing to a guarantee this process had. I had been building toward this since I started at Westmore. I found out Eli had applied on a Thursday morning from a shortlist email that went to all 5 candidates. I read his name on the list and sat very still for a long time. To his credit, he told me before I saw the email. I didn't know that when I saw the email. I found out later, from Marcus, who told me Eli had texted me the night before the list went out, while I had my phone on Do Not Disturb because of the thing with my parents that was still sitting in the room with me like furniture I couldn't move. I missed the text. So the order I received the information was, shortlist email, his name, the cold drop in my stomach, and then, an hour later, his text from the night before, timestamped 11:47 p.m. Hey. I need to tell you something before you see the Harlow list tomorrow. I applied. I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry I didn't. I read it standing in the corridor outside my seminar. I read it 3 times. And then I went into seminar and sat down and did not text him back. This is the part I'm not proud of. I told myself it was because I needed time to process. That was true. I also told myself that I wasn't angry, just surprised. That was less true. And underneath both of those things, in the place I didn't want to look at, was something uglier, the feeling that he had been in my life, in my corner, watching me work toward this, had known about this specific goal since at least December because I had told him, directly, at the cafe table, and had quietly, without a word, put himself in competition with me for it. The patience. The steadiness. The I'm not going anywhere. And the whole time, his application, sitting in the same pile as mine. I knew this wasn't fair. I knew it even then. He was allowed to apply. He had as much right to it as I did. The grant didn't have my name on it in any official sense. I knew all of this. I was angry anyway. I didn't text him back for 2 days. He came to find me. Of course he did. I was in the library, the back section, the one I used when I needed to be somewhere no one would look, and he sat down across from me without asking, which he had the right to do, which I couldn't hold against him, which I did anyway. You got my text, he said. Yes. You didn't respond. I needed time. He looked at me. It's been 2 days, Levi. I know how long it's been. A pause. He placed his hands flat on the table, which was a thing he did when he was being deliberate. I should have told you when I submitted. I know that. I made a call I shouldn't have made and I'm sorry. Why didn't you? Because I knew it would. He stopped. I didn't want it to become a thing between us before it needed to be. So you just let it become a bigger thing. Yes. That was wrong. I said I'm sorry. I looked at him across the table. At the steadiness of him, which I had always found reassuring and right now found, something else. Something that had an edge to it. You've known about this grant since December, I said. I told you it was the goal. The whole year. I told you specifically. I know. And you applied anyway and said nothing. I applied because it's also the right opportunity for me. My family. He stopped. Pressed his mouth together. Started again. My situation is the same as yours. Financially. I need this too. I knew that. I did know that. He had told me, in pieces, over months, the transfer, the scholarship that barely covered it, his mother working double shifts. I knew. I know, I said. Then you understand why I applied. I understand why you applied, I said. I don't understand why you said nothing. He held my gaze. Those are the same complaint dressed differently. They're not. Levi, you had months. My voice came out more controlled than I felt. You had months to say, hey, I'm also going for the Harlow. That's one sentence. You say difficult things. You said things to me on the East Quad that took more courage than one sentence. You just didn't. He was quiet. Why? I said. A long pause. Because I didn't want to watch you decide whether I was competition before I got to be your person, he said. And I handled that badly. I know I did. The library was silent around us. I looked at my hands on the table. I wanted to say, that's fair. I wanted to say, I understand. I wanted to be the version of myself that could hold the complexity of it, his reasons, my feelings, both things true at once. I was not that version of myself today. I need to study, I said. He looked at me for a moment. Okay, he said. He stood up. He left. I stared at my laptop screen for an hour without reading a single word. Zara was dealing with her own thing, I knew that, I could see it in the distracted quality of her texts, the way she was physically present but not quite there when we were together, something happening underneath the surface she wasn't ready to share yet. I didn't push. She had never pushed me. But I told her the broad version. Eli. The grant. The 2 days of silence. The library. She said, are you being fair to him? Probably not. Okay. A pause. Are you going to be? I'm trying. That's not a yes. I know. She looked at me with the expression she used when she had something to say and was deciding whether now was the moment. She decided it wasn't. Come back to me when it gets worse, she said. Because it's going to get worse before it gets better. She was right. She was always right. It got worse. The days between the library and the announcement were the worst kind of days, the kind where nothing happens and everything is still wrong. I went to seminar. I ate. I slept badly. I picked up my phone to text him 3 separate times and put it down 3 separate times because I didn't know how to be in the conversation yet. Not because I was still angry, the anger had already started breaking down into something more complicated and harder to hold, the specific guilt of someone who knows they're being unfair and can't quite stop. I was grieving something. I couldn't even name it cleanly. The grant, maybe, the version of the future where I'd had it, Geneva, the doors, the weight off my family's shoulders for a year. Or maybe something older than the grant. The version of the last 7 months where Eli and I had no competing interests, where everything he'd given me had no other dimension to it. I knew even as I thought it that this was unfair. He was allowed to need things. He was allowed to apply for something he needed. His mother's double shifts were as real as my parents' stretched budget. He had not done anything wrong except keep a thing to himself for too long, which was, and this landed badly, exactly what I had been doing to my parents for 6 weeks. I sat with that for a while. I was keeping a secret that was going to cost something enormous whenever it came out. He had kept a smaller secret and told me before it came out and apologized. And I was the one freezing him out. I knew this. I turned it over and over and I knew this. I still couldn't find the door back in. That's the thing about pride that nobody talks about, it doesn't feel like pride when you're inside it. It feels like needing more time. It feels like waiting until you can be calm. And then the days go by and the distance calcifies and what started as needing time becomes a wall you built without deciding to. Zara called on the Tuesday evening, the night before the announcement. Have you talked to him? We texted. That's not what I asked. I know. A pause. Levi. He applied for a grant. That's it. That's the whole thing. I know. You know, and you're still. I know, Zara. I pressed my hand over my eyes. I know what I'm doing. I don't know how to stop. She was quiet for a moment. Tomorrow's the announcement. I know. Whatever happens, whatever the result is, you need to be okay. For him. If he wins and you're already this far inside your own head about it, you're going to. I know. Okay, she said. I know you know. I just need to say it. She said it. And I went to bed and stared at the ceiling and was not okay, and the announcement was in the morning. The Jordan thing came from Marcus. Which was, in retrospect, inevitable. Marcus could not hold information. He was constitutionally unsuited to it, which was part of why I had always liked him. There was no performance with Marcus, no strategy, just whatever was currently true, delivered at a conversational volume. We were in the coffee line, the three of us. Marcus had somehow attached himself to me after Eli and I started spending time together, a side effect I didn't mind. Marcus said, completely unprompted, as if it was a normal sentence, "You know, he almost lost it at Valentine's." I looked at him. What? Marcus glanced at the door, the reflex of someone who just realized he'd said a thing out loud. The party. Valentine's Day. There was a guy. Marcus, I said. He told me not to tell you. In fairness. He specifically said do not tell Levi. Marcus. His name was Jordan. Marcus looked at his coffee cup. He sat next to you in seminar. He had his hand on the back of your chair and Eli sat on the other side of the room for 40 minutes being completely insane about it while telling me he was fine. I stared at him. I ran a background check, Marcus said. On Jordan. Eli told me not to do that either. You ran a. He's a second year. He's single. He's in my Tuesday lecture. Marcus paused. Eli didn't ask me to find that out. I found it out because I was watching my friend sit across a room and quietly lose his mind over a chair, and I needed to know who the chair was about. The queue moved forward. I thought about the Valentine's party. About Eli coming to the balcony. About the steadiness of him, the way he'd said you don't have to manage everything, not here. The way he'd found me in that crowd and said the exact right thing, while running a background check on a man whose hand was on the back of my chair. Something loosened in my chest that had been tight since Thursday. I thought about Eli sitting across that room. 40 minutes of it. Telling Marcus he was fine while running a background check on a stranger. And then coming to the balcony and finding me and saying exactly the right thing, like he hadn't just spent 40 minutes being quietly out of his mind. He had never once made me feel like a burden. He did it, steadily, without making it a thing. And I had been freezing him out for 4 days over an application he was allowed to submit. I put my coffee down. I've been an idiot, I said. Marcus looked at me with the expression of someone who has been waiting for this conclusion. Little bit, he said. Yeah. The grant aside. The whole week. I've been. He's not angry at you, Marcus said. That's the thing. He was, for about a day. And then he wasn't angry anymore, he was just, he searched for the word. Quiet. In the way that's worse. I knew that, quiet. I'd seen it at the library table. The careful, composed version of Eli that had the effort visible in it. I had put him there. I have to fix this, I said. Yes, Marcus said. You do. He picked up his coffee. But maybe after the announcement. Because you're both going to be in that hall in an hour and it would be better if the conversation happened when neither of you is about to receive life-changing news. He was right. I hated that he was right. I also hated that Marcus, who had run an unsolicited background check on a stranger and delivered it as casual conversation, was currently the most emotionally intelligent person in my immediate circle, but here we were. And then immediately tightened again, because the grant was still the grant, and the announcement was in 1 hour, and there was nothing to do but walk into that hall and see what the next year of my life looked like. The announcement was a Wednesday. Program board, main hall, 11 o'clock. The 5 of us shortlisted in a row of seats that someone had apparently decided should face the rest of the assembled students, which was the kind of institutional cruelty that looked like ceremony. I sat 2 seats from Eli. We had not had a real conversation since the library. He had texted twice. I had responded both times with something that was technically an answer and was actually a door held almost closed. I knew I was doing it. I couldn't stop. Professor Anand spoke for a while. Then the dean. Then someone from the institute via video call who said something about vision and commitment that I stopped hearing after the first sentence because my pulse was doing something inconvenient. This year's Harlow Grant recipient, the dean said, and paused the way people pause when they want the room to feel the weight of the moment, is Eli Crane. The room applauded. I applauded. I did it automatically, the social muscle, hands moving while the rest of me went somewhere very still and very cold. Eli stood. Shook the dean's hand. Said something brief and gracious. Sat back down. He looked at me. I looked at the front of the room. I should have gone home. That is the thing I know now, looking back at that Wednesday. I should have gone straight home, given myself a day, called Zara, been a person who handled things instead of a person who walked into the situation while the thing was still raw. I did not go home. I found Eli in the corridor outside the hall. He was talking to Professor Anand and 2 other students, mid-sentence, and he saw me over Anand's shoulder with an expression that was careful and open and asking me something without words. I waited. When the group dispersed he came to me. Levi. Congratulations, I said. Clean. Level. He looked at me. Thank you. You deserved it. I know you mean that, he said carefully. I also know it's not the whole thing you're feeling. I'm fine. You're not fine. Eli, you've been not fine since Thursday and you've been shutting me out and I have given you space because you needed it but he stopped. Lowered his voice. We were in a corridor full of people and he was aware of it in a way that I, in this moment, was not sufficiently aware of. I need you to talk to me. Actually talk. Not the door almost closed thing you've been doing. I'm talking to you right now. You know what I mean. I did know what he meant. You should have told me, I said. I know. I said, not just about the application. And here is where it started going wrong, here is the moment I could identify later, the place where I should have stopped. About all of it. The thing you don't tell me, the things you manage on my behalf, the Jordan thing. Something shifted in his face. Marcus. It doesn't matter who. Levi, that was nothing. You ran a background check on a man whose hand was on the back of my chair. My voice was still level. You were sitting across a room losing your mind and you didn't say anything, you never say anything, you just manage everything and wait and I'm supposed to what? Be grateful that you're patient. That you're always so patient. That's not. Does it feel good? I said. Knowing everything. Watching everything. Being the one who sees it all coming first. The corridor noise went on around us. Someone laughed near the entrance. Everything completely normal in every direction except this 4-foot radius. Eli's jaw tightened. That's not what this is. What is it then? It's me loving you in the way I know how. You applied for something you knew I was building toward for 2 years and said nothing for months, I said. That's not love. That's strategy, this was the only reason you got close to me, wasn't it? The sentence landed. I knew it the moment it was out. The specific sound of something that cannot be taken back, not because it's true, not because it's entirely untrue, but because it's the kind of thing that once said lives in the room permanently. Eli went very still. Around us the corridor kept moving. Students, noise, the ordinary Tuesday afternoon of a university campus that did not care at all about what was happening in this specific 4 feet of it. Strategy, he said. I didn't, I started. No. His voice was quiet. Not raised. Quieter than before, which was somehow worse. Say what you mean. If you think that's what I am, say it. That's not what I think. Then why did you say it? I didn't have an answer. I was standing in the wrong place, in the wrong moment, full of the wrong feelings, and the only honest answer was, because I lost and you won and I'm not handling it and it's not your fault and I'm making it your fault anyway. I need to go, I said. Levi. I walked away. 30 feet down the corridor I heard Marcus's voice behind me, somewhere near Eli, saying something low. I didn't stop. The thing about saying something you can't take back is that you have to then go somewhere and live with having said it. I went to my room. I sat on my bed. I thought about the word strategy and the way it had landed on Eli's face, not hurt, something more controlled than hurt, something that had pulled back into itself like a door closing, and I felt sick. He had applied for a grant. He had made one bad call about when to tell me. He had sat across a room at a party running a background check on a stranger because that stranger's hand was on the back of my chair. He had waited 7 months. He had said I'm not going anywhere and meant it in a way I was only beginning to understand. And I had called it strategy. My phone had 3 texts. One from Zara, heard there was a thing in the corridor. Call me. One from Marcus, you need to fix this. I say this as someone who likes you both. One from Eli, nothing. The nothing from Eli was the loudest thing in the room. I called Zara. She answered immediately. How bad? Bad. What did you say? I told her. A long silence. Levi. I know. That's. I know, Zara. He waited 7 months. I know. My voice cracked slightly on the word, which I hadn't expected. I know what he did. I know what I said. I'm not dumb, I know. She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again her voice was gentler. You're allowed to be gutted about the grant. You worked for it. It's a real loss and you're allowed to feel it. I took it out on him. Yes. He didn't deserve that. No. I said the worst possible. Yes, she said again. You did. A pause. So now you have to decide what you do next. I called Zara from outside the building, standing in the cold because I couldn't be inside anything right now. She picked up immediately. How bad? I said he was strategic. That his patience was strategy and that was the only reason he got close to me. Silence. Zara. I'm here. I'm just, she exhaled. You said that to him. Yes. Levi. I know. He waited 7 months. He ran a background check on a stranger whose hand was on your chair. He texted you at midnight before the list went out to warn you. And you said. I know. My voice came out wrong. I know, okay. I know what I said. I know what he did. I can see the whole thing right now with perfect clarity and it doesn't. I stopped. My throat was doing something I didn't want. It doesn't go back in. I can't take it back. No, she said. You can't. So what do I do? You go to him. Now. When else? He's probably with Marcus. It's been 20 minutes. Levi. Stop managing the optics and go to him. I stood in the cold. He's going to be hurt, I said. He is already hurt. I know. I stopped. I'm scared he's going to be calm about it. He does that. He goes quiet and calm and you can't tell what's happening underneath and I don't. Then you sit with the quiet and the calm and you apologize anyway, she said. That's what you do. You don't get to wait for an easier version of the conversation. A pause, softer now. You know what he did for you. 7 months of it. One hard conversation is not a lot to ask in return. She was right. She was always right, and it was exhausting. I went to his room at 9 o'clock. Marcus opened the door. He looked at me. He looked behind him into the room. He stepped aside without a word, which was the most tactful thing Marcus had done in the entire time I'd known him. Eli was at his desk. He turned when I came in. His face was composed in the way it got when he was keeping it composed, the careful version, the one with the effort visible in it if you knew where to look. I knew where to look. I'm sorry, I said. What I said was wrong. It wasn't true, and I said it anyway, and I'm sorry. He looked at me. I'm not asking you to be fine with it, I said. I needed you to know I know it was wrong. The room was quiet. Marcus had somehow evaporated, which I was grateful for. Strategy, Eli said. It wasn't true. I know it wasn't true. He turned his chair to face me fully. That's not why it hurt. I waited. It hurt because you reached for the worst version of me when you were in pain, he said. The version that isn't real. And I know you were losing something and you needed somewhere to put it. I understand that, I do, but I have spent 7 months being careful with you. Being patient. Not pushing. And the first time something costs you, he stopped. Shook his head once. I know, I said. I need you to know it costs me too, Levi. I told you that. I told you the patience costs something. And I meant it, and I was honest about it, and then you turned around and called it strategy, and I. He stopped again. Pressed his mouth together. The thing was, he wasn't angry. He was hurt, which was so much harder. I'm sorry, I said again. I know you are. That doesn't fix it. No, he said. It doesn't. He looked at me for a long moment. I need a day. Okay. I'm not ending this. I'm not going anywhere. I just need a day where I'm not looking at you and thinking about that word. Okay, I said. Take whatever you need. He looked at me for another moment. Something in his expression shifted, not warmer, not resolved, but less sealed. Like he was letting me see slightly more of what was underneath. The grant, he said. For what it's worth, I was going to tell you first. When I found out. Before anyone else. That was the plan. I know, I said. I know you were. I know you worked for it. I know what it meant. You worked for it too. I know. A pause. I need you to know I didn't want it to be at your expense. I need this opportunity in the same way you do. That's true. And it would be a lie to say I'm not glad I got it. But I'm not glad about the way it's sitting between us right now. I nodded. My throat was doing the thing again. I know. I know that. Okay. He turned back to his desk. Not dismissive, just, done for tonight, the same way I was done for tonight, both of us at the edge of what we could hold in one conversation. Eli. He looked back. The Jordan thing, I said. The background check. I almost didn't say the next part. I'm glad you told me. I mean that. Something moved in his face. Very briefly. Something that was almost the smile, the real one. Marcus wasn't supposed to tell you, he said. I know. He has no capacity for confidentiality. I know. I'm going to have words with him. He did it with love, I said. Eli looked at me. Yeah, he said, quieter. He did. A beat. The room very still. One day, I said. One day, he confirmed. I left. I stood in the corridor outside his door and I thought about 7 months of patience and 1 sentence of damage and the very specific mathematics of how much faster you can break something than you built it. One day. That was what he'd asked for. One day where he wasn't looking at me and thinking about that word. Not a week. Not a withdrawal. Not a door closed. One day, and then we were going to have to find the path back from what I'd said, and I was going to have to walk it because I was the one who'd made it necessary. I could do that. I had to do that. I leaned against the wall for a moment and thought about everything that had happened since September. Eli at the debate tournament, giving me the nod across the room. Eli at the cafe table, the first time, watching me the way someone watches something they've already decided about. Eli on the East Quad, saying since October like it was the simplest thing. Eli texting me at 11:47 p.m. to warn me before the list went out, while I had my phone on Do Not Disturb because of my parents. He had been so careful with me for so long. And the first real cost, not even the biggest cost, not the grant itself, just the finding out, and I had reached for the worst word I had. Strategy. I thought about his face when it landed. The stillness of it. The way he hadn't raised his voice, hadn't matched me, had just gone quiet and asked me to say what I meant. That was the thing about Eli that I had loved from the beginning and had thrown back at him today. He never performed. When he was hurt he was actually hurt, no theater, no escalation. Just, the real thing, held steadily, waiting for you to catch up to it. I owed him so much better. I didn't know yet how to be the person who gave it consistently. I was learning. Apparently the learning involved failing first and having to reckon with the failure, which was information I would have preferred earlier in the process, but here we were. One day. I pushed off the wall and started walking. The grant was his. The corridor had happened. My parents still didn't know. And the person I had managed to hurt worse today was the one who had been, from the beginning, the most careful with me. I owed him better than I'd given. I knew that. Knowing it tonight, in this corridor, was not enough. But it was the beginning of what I had to do next. And I was going to do it. Starting tomorrow. One day. Part 4. They're not okay yet, but not okay isn't the same as over. Part 5 is coming, and it belongs to someone who has been waiting a long time for her own story. Subscribe. You know what to do.